Hello, my name is Wolfgang Kampichler. I'm with Frequentis, and I'm having the honor to chair this session about implementing next generation 112. So I'm quite much involved in the standardization, and it's really great to see that we have three speakers on the stage that are talking about the implementation. So it's not just paperwork, it's real. And our first speaker today will be Igor. Igor is head of Department of Information Technology and Telecommunications Crisis Management Center of North Macedonia. Igor, as soon as you're ready, the chair is yours. Okay, thanks.
Hello. Thank you. When you need to bring glasses, mask, and microphone, then you have a problem. I'm Igorce Karafilovski. I'm from Crisis Management Center North of Macedonia, and in role of technical implementation, managing the technical implementation in 112 in our country. Finally, I can say that we start with implementation after 13 years, because we start with study. We published the study actually 2009, but we don't start with implementation. Then, because of the technology issues, we need to do revision in 2016. And finally, we start with implementation, and probably we will be done to the end of the year, and production start of next year. Oh, I forgot. I will speak a little bit about our organization of emergency service in our country, about the quick overview on my country, drivers for implementation of next generation 112, stakeholders which is involved. After that, we are doing also legislation update, challenges which we found it, and lessons which we learned from the implementation. Our country, my country, Macedonia, is located in Balkan Peninsula. It's approximately 25,713 square kilometers. Population is, according to Eurostat, is something little bit above 2 million. When ratio is 65% approximately Macedonians, 25 Albanians, and 10% this other population. And according to urban and rural area, 1.2 million is living in urban area, 0.8 in rural area. The existing system, or system which is still in function, we have 4 numbers for emergency. This is now is 192 for for Police, Ministry of Interior, 193 Fire Department, 194 Ministry of Health or Ambulance, and 195 Crisis Management Center. They are work all 24 hours, 7 days in the week, and some of those numbers even don't have opportunity to record the calls. And some of them are using manual telephone without communications support system. Drivers to change this, which we have now, is that law of crisis management. We says that Crisis Management Center will host the system unique in National Emergency System 112. And also Crisis Management Center will need to make this procedural upgrade. With that, we will get one signal technological platform, and our operational procedures we need to upgrade to cover all emergency calls. Also, we include European Electronic Communication Regulation, or code, which is recently published, which is include also eCall, IML, etc. Implementation of the project is actually started or founded by IPA2 money, European IPA2 instrument, where they provided service for tendering and implementation guidelines, and also supply for hardware, software, and delivery. Third part is local financing. It's site renovation, everything to look good. We use money for the government for this purpose, and according to now, it's 60–70% done. The main issue in headquarters is already finished. We have now 4 agencies. Our aspect is to have one single point. On one place, we will get the calls. After that, will be depending of which agency it will need include. The call will be forwarded. We have one issue here that police will be not joined now in the system because they want to have their continuity of work. We will join the police in second phase. Our service, emergency service, is planned to have 2 phases: call-taking phase and dispatch phase. This is regular call-taking, usual call-taking phase, which need to identify, which means identifying the caller, localize the caller, and incident classification, interview, etc., etc. Why and what is next generation 112 in Macedonia? We want to have emergency platform which use the most advanced technology which is already currently available in Europe and in the world. That's why we decided we will have 100% IP-based communication protocols. We will use SIP trunks. We will not use old one ISDN and protocols. For sending SMS, we will use SMPP protocol. With that, we will follow 100% standards for EENA implementation. This means that we will have geolocation-based routing, skill-based routing, because we have issue in our country. We have multilingual, some parties multilingual speaking, most of Albanian language, and we will provide real-time possibility to create ad hoc crisis situation. Third pillar is that we have 100% multi-tenancy web-based software as a service incident management platform. This we will have benefit that we can rapid deployment on real-time implementing the another protocols or changing protocols, and the system will be we will have scalability for expansion in the future if we need something to do new features. Also, for EENA, we implement some logistics, which give us some possibilities. For example, incoming calls will be distinguished by the region. Does mean that somebody, if call 112, call taker from this region will pick up the call. Second, call routing is based on the language which I already mentioned, that some areas in Macedonia we have majority Albanian speakers. When the call taker is logged in that he knows Albanian Macedonian language, when this area is called from this area which is majority Albanian speakers, ringing, somebody is called 112, the call taker which check that he knows Albanian and Macedonian will pick up the call, not the person who knows only Macedonian or other language. Then we decided we will not use ISDN trunk, we will use SIP protocols, and we will treat it by the SIP-based equal modem. Localization component of the EENA will take care of all geolocation sources, even these sources which is not provided by the which is not part by the SIP protocol. And with this component, we will make available to the incident management system all geolocation services in once. Which logistic we also used when we developed our system. I already mentioned that we choose software as a service. This gives us many features that scalability, easy to to scale up the platform, then to make expansions, etc. Web-based clients is more important. It's more important because we don't need to install nothing on the remote site where we are call-taking positions. We need only to use regular browser, and everything is there and managed by the one point in central IT facility. And multi-tenant approach, that one single platform, we can restrict some information, we can share some information, and we are capable to add new agencies in the future. For example, police will be not in the first phase, we will add in second phase. We will not have additional development for adding police in the system. Also, we made some classification of the incident because call taker will be in CMC, and depending of the needs which PSOs will need to be engaged, depending it's fire, we will be engaged fire brigades, or need police, or crisis, or medical. Second classification is with the priorities of the incidents. First is, and the most important is, we have, it's for emergency, it's we have patient death. Second is high, then medium, low, and last one is no emergency. Which stakeholder we involve until now to implement the project? Sorry. Contractor is EU delegation, as already mentioned. Consultancy is done by Bonumstrat Consulting with key expert Gregorianin. Beneficiary is Crisis Management Center. And technology is provided by Beta 80 with local company ECS Consulting Engineering. There are another external stakeholders which is also cooperating with beneficiary. This is police and telecom operators in our countries. Legislation update, we already do it. The official, the changes of the law is published on official gazette in 16th of September with the validity on 24th of September. We need to publish rule book for 112, but we need to do some more clarification because we need first to finish operational procedures from another PSOs, for example, police, fire brigades, and emergency. After that, everything which is not covered in their procedures, we need to cover it with our procedure. Challenges which we found it until these 13 years of implementation is that the biggest challenge was how to synchronize all emergency institutions to be on one platform. Second, and also it's important that we have another project which is developed and financed by NATO SPS program. It's called NICS, Next Generation Incident Command System, and it's officially with the decree of the government from 2019 official tool for the digitalization of crisis management system. Does mean that when more institutions need to be included, when somebody calls 112, 112 system needs automatically to send incident to the NICS, which will be in function as a common operation picture, and this incident, its proclaimed crisis situation, will be worked on this system, on NICS. lessons which we learned from all these years is that, first of all, we tried to change how the working on another emergency institutions, for example, police, but we learned that we cannot change the way of their working, but we need to adapt to their rules. That's why we need to move in 112, but not to move in any case like police, but we need to extend the room virtually, just to attach to SNet, and after that, when they will ready to include in 112. We need also to make our procedures, as I already mentioned, to cover everything, and with this, we will get better utilization of the unit and unified reaction and intervention. What is next steps which we must do? It's activation of the platform. We will start in November, moving 193, 194, and 195 on the platform, and activation officially 112 in Macedonia will be on 11th of February, 112 day. And I forgot to mention that we will have 8 regional sub-centers for 112 in our country. And this is all from my presentation. If somebody has a question, please.
Many thanks, Igor. Do we have questions somewhere? I have one question.
Yes, please.
So, when considering all the things you mentioned, the legislation, the technical part, and perhaps also the change in the operations, where was the main challenge when you decided to go with NG112? So was it more the technical part or the organizational or legislation part?
To be honest, the technical part is never the challenge. The challenge was how organizational part, how to reorganize or not to reorganize all these issues with another emergency services. That's why I mentioned that we try all these years to organize their daily working. But no, you cannot change daily working on police or emergency service or fire brigades. You need just to adapt to their daily working and include in 112. The point is not to change their way of working, but to change our approach of implementing 112 and everybody to be happy and to want to be in 112.
There's another question.
Yes, please.
So the police, the old numbers, they still have their dedicated PSAPs, and the 112 are new dedicated PSAPs. Is that correct?
For the beginning, I forgot to mention that all these numbers which are now using will stay some period, just to have continuity of working. Only police will not be directly attached now in first phase, we will attach in second phase, but after some period, when we will see that 112 is working perfectly, step by step, phase by phase, we will how we will attach. For example, first will be 193 medical. When everything is okay, we will off 113 after maybe, I don't know, 1, 2, 3 years, depending how many time we need to learn or to make all people that 112 is unique number for everything. Because somebody will continue to work 190, 194, now 192. You cannot change the mind of the people.
Okay.
Just to be clear, the 112 are dedicated PSAPs. It's new people
Yeah.
with new procedures. The old one.
Yeah, the
are not
112 will be
okay.
in function parallel with all these numbers now, and it's new, brand new, everything is new. New call center, new call takers, And when somebody will call 112, we will have in CMC call taker, and after that, we will redirect call or engage forces which is needed for this incident, dealing with this incident.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We need to move on with our next speaker. Next speaker is Beat Egger, Management Consulting and Program Manager, NG112 at Swisscom. Beat, the floor is yours.
I'm the guy with a tractor paper. So my name is Beat Egger, I'm from Swisscom, and I like to show you how Switzerland implementing NG112. We have over 80 million people in Switzerland, and our topology is very complicated. We have high mountains, deep valleys, and lakes, towns in small places. That's not very easy to handle. We have 4 languages, 26 cantons splinted in over 2,000 communities with a lot of autonomy they have. We have 3 mobile operators, over 16 fixed net operators, and over 150 access network providers. 45 PESOPs, they are organized different, some nationwide, some about the topology like the air rescue, or some about the cantons. There are requirements to integrate NG112. So first of all, the ECC stuff, you know by heart. Huh? We have to implement all things like that, you know. And the second one is, before we can handle an emergency call, we have to know where the call is coming or where the accident is. In Switzerland, we route every emergency call during the net-based location. Means either with the cell informations or on an IP-based system. So we have an IP localization where you know exactly on which house is somebody who do a call. Then of course we have to implement as well eCall and AML. And everything have to be according to new standards NG112. You know as well this picture, I think that's the architecture of this. Sorry. And I show you the red arrows are the call flow or the interconnection from the voice service providers to the PESOPs. And what we do not have in Switzerland is a regulation for the access net providers. And the architecture of NG112 means that every access net have a location server that we can solve all the localization problems, but we do not have it. So that means we have, or a centralized list is required. You see it here in the middle. And in Switzerland, we produce 2 interfaces. One is the interface from the voice service provider, where the voice service provider can fill in locations in the centralized list. It's the interface IC, and on the other side is the interface IM from the PESOPs, where you can request the location over a list proxy, because you can have behind several list systems. So that leads to a new regulation, like in all other countries as well. We have 3 levels of legislation. We have to be finished with the mobile stuff at the end of this year, and with the fixedness stuff, hopefully end of next year. That's not so interesting, huh? The access net provider are not regulated. So we saw a centralized location information system is requested. So some of the topics do not fulfill meet the standards, but it's the best practice for the current system. So, the centralized list is not according to standards. To have the AML on one voice service provider, it's not according to standard. To integrate eCall at all mobile network operators is as well not according to standards. To write in informations like net-based and device-based locations in a centralized list is not according to standard. So the PESOPs need one interface to request. That's according to standard. So HELD is needed and list proxy is needed. The consequence is we rebuilt the whole emergency communication from Switzerland. The cooperation between the PESOP and the regulator and the VSPs is absolutely important to have access, because the migration is very complicated. You have to migrate all the voice service providers, all the PSAPs. We have to operate in parallel an old system where we have the locations in for mobile and for fixed net. You have to transport new informations like the AML information and the eCall information. And the informations came offset of the emergency call a little bit later. And the second position, third position, and so on. You have to handle new SIP headers over the interconnection. And a standard is missing inside the PSOPs, because you have to bring all the SIP informations, all the information you get in SIP with all the new headers towards to the operation communication centers, to the CAD systems. In the reality, it looks like that for us. So we have to produce, the voice service providers have to produce two interfaces in parallel. And we have to wait that the PSOP make the migration from the old interfaces we use at the moment to the new interfaces with HELD. A little bit more in detail, it looks like that. We have the devices who send informations over voice, in SIP, over SMS to the voice service providers. The voice service provider have to locate the call and have to write the location inside the list. And when the device send up later on additional location, so we have to write it as example by AML over SMS to the list. The list can give us back a location by reference, and the reference we can send within the SIP call towards to the PESOP. But here on the PESOP side, we have the SIP information here on the telephony system, and we have to forward it to the operation center services, that they can request the location over the list proxy by the list and deliver it back. So the basics for the NG112 interface are the DIN, the ETSI, the IETF standards, the requirements of the PESOPs, and the regulation. So the standards are very complicated. That's hundreds of documents, thousands of sites, and it's very complicated to read. So what we did in Switzerland is we defined everything in one paper. We put all the standards in one paper, and we provide as well XSD for the whole interface for the developers, that it's easier to develop. In these interfaces are these objects provided, That can be on other country, it can be different here, the address stuff, of course. And we capsulate everything in health, in the standard information in health. So that means we put in a PIT flow element, it's tuple, where we have in the net-based localization. And a device element where we have the device-based information. Or the MSD XML when we can put in the equal stuff. In reality, it looks like that. On the left side, you can see how it looks like with a net-based location, the messages. Here, the device-based messages, and that, when you put it together, you have the possibility to put it together. It makes the life easier for the PSAPs. Of course, the PSAPs can look it on their CAD, the information with the objects, and with some additional informations. The measure for cooperation. Yes, for testing purposes, decide the test equipment is available. That means Switzerland made a reference list and a reference list proxy. On the list, there are predefined test cases for the PSAPs and the VSPs to implement and validate their functionality. The predefined test cases can be called up via these two interfaces we saw, via IC and IM. We have to find a solution together with the PBX manufacturer and the OCS manufacturer that we can deliver the SIP information out of the telephony to their operation control systems that they can request the list proxy. And that is not existing. That's the timeline. It's not so necessary, but what's necessary is the lessons learned. Again, the cooperation between the PSAP, the regulation, and the telecom providers is absolutely important. The detailed definition of protocol for a country and the review with the involved parts, the regulator, the voice service provider, and the PSAP is purposeful. It results in a common understanding for the elements you use. As operator of a central list and list proxy providing reference test cases for the voice service providers and the PSAPs simplifies development and helps to prevent errors and problems. Handling net-based and device-based location is very complex. To make it easier for the PSAPs, bring both together. Restrictions in the regulations, as example, the centralized list, or to write in over IC the information to the list, leads to adapt for standards. We are in contact for that. There is no standard inside the PSAPs we saw. That would be a good thing. And the service or functionality is end-to-end available when the last PSAP have migrated to NG 112 and have implemented all these functionalities, of course. Location by value. The data of net-based and device-based or application localizations can be very, very large. If the voice service provider writes this information in a list, take a location by reference, where is a very short URL, that can be, then is the SIP communication less loaded and the risk of error is absolutely lower. The regulation of mobile device suppliers is a requirement to be able to guarantee the emergency call needed end-to-end. So that's it from my side. Thank you.
Thanks, Beat. I'm really happy to see that I'm not the only one doing technical presentations at EENA. So thanks for the technical details in your presentation. Do we have any questions? Yes.
I would like to ask, in the last slide, you mentioned that the SIP URL you use is smaller. Can you go to the last slide? And that is less loaded and the risk of errors is lower, but it's IP. So you have the acknowledgement that returns this channel. So why it's the risk of errors is lower?
The point is, location by value you saw in the messages, they can be very, very huge. And the problem is to handle the SIP informations in between of different components. And on the telecommunication systems, you have a lot of these components. And you accept these informations on all the components if you forward it or not. So the risk is much higher. I mean, if you deliver only a little URL, that's very, very simple. You know, you bring it through all the system. You have to manage only one information. You have to white box only geolocation and call info as a header, and that's it. You know, but for the rest, you have to check if it's a feasible information. Is the format right, and so on and so on and so on, and that's a big risk.
Any other question? If not, Beat, may I ask you one question? When do we see voice over LTE emergency calls being routed through your NG infrastructure to the PSAP?
You have to ask probably Andreas. He's the deputy of PSAPs. But I think in March we will see, March 22.
That's soon. Wow.
Yeah.
Last chance for questions. Yes. Freddy?
Yeah, I don't know if you can hear me, but...
No, you get the microphone.
Thank you, Bet. Hello. Thank you, Bet. Great presentation. If you are ready to take calls by March 2022, will the mobile operators and fixed operators be ready to deliver IP-based calls to you then as well?
The fixed net operations not, they will be changed their systems a year later, but all the other mobile network operator will do, yeah.
Thanks. Okay, our next speaker. I'm really happy to have you here, Jürgen. Next speaker is Jorgen Schwanze, DG for Public Safety, Ministry of the Interior of Austria. And he is going to talk about NG112 development and status in Austria. Jürgen, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon from my side. Title of the presentation, Status on Implementation in Austria. Of course, always on a ministry perspective. You will see later on why I mentioned this. I'm standing in front of you, highlighted. Here it's a little bit better. Not because we are early adopters, nor we are a role model for quick innovation. Frankly spoken, the Ministry of Interior in its entirety, with all the banding factors, with all the framework, we are more like an oil tanker in the Suez Channel, and we are struggling to reach open sea. However, we have the strict focus on implementing NG112, And how we deal with this, we just want to share our approach, our way, our path we found with you, and maybe it will also fit for one or another. As mentioned, our framework, therefore the first slide will just present a little bit the framework to understand our situation, why we are quite in a, as mentioned, binding factors. By constitution, as Austria is a very large country, we have 9 federal states, and the competences are divided between the federal states and the government level. So all the, let's say, like ambulance, fire brigade matters are all competences of the federal states. And we also have, not only therefore, but we have the structure of our emergency numbers. We have 8 national numbers. And the whole emergency taking in these competences of the federal states, they are completely free to set up the structure, to set up the way how they engage, how they respond or receive their emergency calls. And therefore we have a, of course, very heterogeneous landscape in Austria. Here are the national numbers. I do not want to go into detail. Everyone who is very interested in it can also read it afterwards when you receive the presentation. As mentioned before, we have 8 numbers. Several of them, 5 are completely in the competences of the federal states, and the other on country level. Now, why I'm standing here? The Federal Ministry of Interior is in charge, aside ECOL, for the emergency numbers 112 and 133. What is the the national number for police emergencies matters. And we are since in operation since more than 1 year in the lucky situation now to have a common CAD system and communication system, and we have 9 interconnected PSAPs that are all working with this system. This is a result of a project before that we are now in these days internally we will face the end of this project phase. So we got into operation as mentioned already before. The main tasks of this project was to set up one common dispatch and communication system for all the 112 that are in fact our police PSAPs, and therefore the abbreviation ELKOS, it's just the abbreviation for the German name of it, Einsatzleit- und Kommunikationssystem. One main task of this project was the consolidation of our PSAPs. We centralized them from more than 100 in the beginning to 9. So 1 PSAP each region or each federal state. And of course, in the background, standardization, comprehensive learning program, everything to gather new personnel on these PSAPs. So it was a quite stressful time for this. So just to have a look at our system now, we have our system is running in 4 fully geo-redundant server center, 2 in the west and 2 in the east of Austria. And as mentioned before, we have now 9 emergency PSAPs. They are also our command and control PSAPs united. Here are some pictures. That's probably the first one, the most beautiful one. This is in Tyrol. It shows just also the nowadays PSAP that is still looking forward to being rebuilt, because the whole police command of Tyrol will be rebuilt very soon. They started already, although this phase will also take 2 or 3 years. What were the further targets of our project? We had in the past, as mentioned already in some presentation before, an existing, not up-to-date, not really say system, but a possibility for deaf service, like a fax, like a SMS that is translated into email, and also email that was not up to date. Therefore, we always searched for a new possibility, and based on this, we looked for a highest possible grade of interoperability and therefore standardization. What we, and this was an very personal target, didn't want is all the possibilities of different kind of systems, of apps that seek to get access to our emergency response center, and nearly once a month they brought their ideas on our political level, and therefore we decided together to have only the possibility for standardized product, to have one channel in our system to work on this. This was a very big issue. And of course, in the background also, this should ensure that all the further developments we all plan can go hand in hand with a minimum of migration and integration costs and development costs. So this was also a big issue. As mentioned, we trust on this, on the two defined standards, the ETSI standards, and we brought all this information with all the advantages, but also the risks, to highest political level. And our minister, you can see him here on the right side, gave the order himself to develop NG112 in Austria and to start with the implementation of DEC 112. On the left-hand side, you see the president of the deaf community. And we had also some negotiation anchoring this, the core services in national law. It will be implemented, charged. No, the obligation will be in the new Telecommunication Act, and we are waiting since months for this new Telecommunication Act. Most probably it will be launched with December, and this is also one main part of our framework. We are only responsible to manage to operate the emergency number, but we are not in charge for setting up the regulation and to transfer it into national law. This is an other ministry. And in this new Telecommunication Act, the operator of 112, so the Federal Minister of Interior, will be obliged to run this central needed core services to fulfill the standards and to provide all the other emergency response organization in Austria with this central service, and also one central EML endpoint. As also mentioned before, we had this idea already in a very early phase in our project duration, and could implement it at the end of our project in December 2020. And from this moment on, nationwide for all Austria, we have the possibility for the text chat, a text-based emergency call in our system. Currently, we receive this and operate with this only in one PSAP, in the PSAP of Vienna. But it's an organizational decision. It will be adapted maybe. It's depending on the quantity and the lessons learned and experiences with this operation. And also to mention, we could gather an certification for a customer conduct center earlier this year in February 2021. So, and also this channel, DEC 112, was already certified. Here you can see the user interface, the call taker in the PSAP of Vienna. You see the incoming call, just the message from the mobile with, and this is very decisive, with a qualitative location data, and and the answer of our call taker. So it's quite simple and übersichtlich. Anyway, the German speaking will understand. Maybe I'll find the word afterwards. What was our approach? We see the whole package of NG112 as an ongoing development. Because of our landscape, because of our framework, we decided to develop it in stages. Yeah, I think it's obviously just to get forward, because if you want to implement all together at one point, the risk of failure would be too high, simply. And now, on 1st of October, we already got the order for the project to set up or to transfer this central core services under our responsibility, and in the next step to provide this possibility to all organizations. Thanks to Wolfgang and a team of volunteers, and also the support on European level, we have this core services in operation, but not in under the responsibility of a state. It's up to now a private initiative. Yeah, of course, this needs close cooperation. Last slide, prospects NG112, nothing new. You all know more about the detailed possibilities of NG112. We will see what next projects will be ordered. Of course, as in the session before, we heard also the emergency call in sign language will be strong possibility in the future. So that's just our path that is leading to Rome. You know, a lot of paths lead to Rome. Ours is for sure not the shortest, also not the quickest, but we are very confident to reach it, and nothing should be worse than to go several times to Rome when you separate it in different goals. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Jürgen. Do we have questions? There's one.
Yes, you mentioned something about it's operated by a private company. Is it the core elements?
The core elements right now, yes.
So the PSAPs are renting the services, the connection to a private company that includes all the services for NG111.
Yeah, the services are not that big because all the services, we just have the focus on this text-based right now. And it's not a company, it's a private initiative. This is also an important part, and this will be transferred under governmental responsibility with this law. And for this transition process, we will together look after that these core components are still in work.
I have another question. You mentioned that in the past it was fax and email and SMS. What's the experience in the control room? Do you already have some feedback from the core takers working with the new system?
Yeah, it's astonishing, positive, not to say enthusiastic. It's not astonishing because of the technique, that's quite obviously, but it's astonishing because this PSAP is one of the most busiest in Austria, in Vienna, and they had already an old system, they are used to old system, and therefore it is astonishing that it's that positive. Yeah.
There's another question, Fiona.
How are you getting location on your NG112 system?
We get this location with the text-based emergency call right now.
What does text-based mean? Is it AML, or are you sending a text link to the caller?
We still, no, in this system you need an app that follows the standards. Mm-hmm. And with this, we get also qualified location data. But you know more than all that we are very engaged to receive also ML data from Google, and we have a correspondence that is 3 years already lasting. And I hope we will come to a positive
what
solution.
Percentage of, how many downloads of the app do you currently have? Because we've seen very, very low usage.
Yeah, of course. Right now, because it's still not, we have the core system still not under public responsibility. It is advertised only in the deaf community. But it will not be limited. At least this is our plan. If our experiences would show something else, of course, we will adapt this decision. But right now, I do not see any limitation only for deaf to use this possibility. But this means also, as soon as we advertise this possibility and spread this advertisement, of course, the quantity will go up, and we will have to be prepared in our PSAP. Either it's 1 Either it's an own one that will receive the call, or we spread it to all of our PSAPs. So we will just learn and adapt our organization to the needs.
Okay, thank you. Actually, we're already in the coffee break. So do we have another question? Okay, if not, then let's thank our speakers with a big round of applause.